I sometimes feel vilified for not being fully vegan. They ask me, oh, are you vegan? And I say, oh, no, I'm more flexitarian. I never get the question that asks me why. I was raw vegan for a while as well. My skin was flawless. Beyonce who? I woke up like this. It was almost kind of like, who do you think you are? Do you think you're better than me? Rejection isn't personal. You'll learn how to accept no, but then you'll get more yeses than you realize.
Have you ever met someone who's always doing something? Whether self-enriching, self-improving, learning a new skill, and you wonder how in the heck do you have all the time and energy for this? Meet Kristen K.G., the most educated person I know with at least 4 or 5 degrees, if not more at this point. An educator, singer, nature lover, animal lover, travel enthusiast, multilingual, and aspiring cybersecurity engineer. Today, she's going to share her experiences as a flexitarian, getting resistance on both sides, how to self-advocate and deal with rejection, her thoughts on pesticides, plants, animals, and insects, and she may grace us with a little performance at the end. Welcome to Annoying Vegans, where we bring you perspective, validation, and laughs. And I'm sure we're gonna get a lot of that today with my guest, my good friend, Kristen K.G. Welcome to the pod. Thank you for coming on.
Of course. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, okay. So let's start with an icebreaker.
Of course. Let's do it.
What's your favorite color?
My favorite color is a series of shades of blue.
Okay.
So I can't just isolate it to one because I like a combination of like shades of blue that go into a teal green.
Ooh, so basically what I have on?
Not quite. Not quite, you know?
Okay, got you.
Yeah. If anyone has ever been to Hawaii, there's like a place where, well, maybe not Hawaii, but there's an ocean where the fresh water meets the salt water and the color changes. So like one side of it looks like a deep ocean blue, and the other side is like a really beautiful turquoise color, and they don't blend, so you can see the separation of both colors.
That's beautiful. Blue and green are my favorite colors too, and Alex's as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So that actually segues nice into my next question. I was gonna ask, what's your favorite place that you traveled to?
I would have to say Cuba. Cuba was, oh my gosh, it was, and it's such an incredible experience for me. And when I travel, I don't travel so much for like the tourism or the tourist attractions or like, you know, being on a beach, you know, which is cool, right? But I travel because I love being able to kind of gain exposure to other cultures and just how they live and being able to see in what ways they pale in comparison to U.S. culture. So Cuba, hands down, was the most incredible place I've ever visited because they are frozen in time, essentially in the 1950s, right? Not necessarily for good reason, but seeing everything of how it was potentially then and how it is now, and then seeing just how jovial and how communicative and how community and family oriented the people are. Beautiful weather, beautiful water, amazing food, talented people. I felt like everyone from Cuba probably has like amazing vocals and can play an instrument very well, because everywhere I went, people were like singing in the street, and there was just like so much talent. It was just incredible. It's a really incredible experience.
I've gotta go to Cuba. That sounds like a beautiful place.
Yes.
How's the food?
Food is very good. And one of the things I noticed is that even though they may be, you know, kind of frozen in time, right? Because like if you think in terms of veganism and plant-based dieting and things relative to that, or plant-based foods, or living where you eat plant-based foods or are vegan, that wasn't something that was really a thing in the 1950s, right? If you think about them being frozen in time. But there were places that actually incorporated vegan food options into their meal options, into the food, into the drinks, into like the smoothies, even though it's a country that's not very well off in terms of development, right?
Yeah.
So just them adding that element to kind of be inclusive of everyone, I thought was very fascinating when I was there too.
Yeah, when you talk about like well off, it kind of just reminds me about a lot of like the history and how the the vegan food, like the beans and the rice, would be eaten by people who did not have a lot of money, and like the meat would be eaten by the people who are rich. And they would be heavy, and then the people who were not financially well off would be thinner, and they would, just because they were eating a lot of the vegan food.
And it's interesting that you say that, because if you travel to other countries, one of the things that you see probably most notably in and I would say maybe more developed countries is when they have like their street food, it has some kind of meat, right? But in Cuba, every single place that you go that's within like Old Havana or Havana, none of the street vendors serve meat. And again, it's to your point where it's like a luxury. I said it's a delicacy. The government rations their food, so they can't just like sell chicken, right? So they create foods, they create meals out of things like corn and bread and chocolate. The chocolate's amazing. So so that's also something that I found very interesting, is that they find creative ways to make foods out of some of the most basic ingredients. So it was a wonderful experience. Highly recommend.
So this one might be a little controversial, but we're annoying vegans. So you're not a vegan, you don't identify as vegan, you're more flexitarian. The most annoying thing about vegans is what?
I would say for me, I sometimes feel vilified or even criminalized in a sense for not being fully vegan. So I would say for me, that would have to be probably one of the most annoying things, because it's like, I walk into maybe a mix of people who are vegan or plant-based, who eat plant-based, fully plant-based, and they ask me, "Oh, are you vegan?" And I say, "Oh no, I'm more flexitarian." And then that's the end of the conversation. They don't want to engage me or talk to me anymore, or like I'll get like, maybe evil stares from across the table if I'm still there, So I would say that's probably the most annoying thing. And they don't ever, usually I never get the question that asks me why. Like, why are you flexitarian? Like, why do you continue to eat meat, know? So I feel like there's, one of the things that I also find annoying is just the lack of wanting to understand other people who don't practice fully, practice veganism fully.
Yeah, that's actually kind of what I wanted to ask you now is, could you tell us what got you into veganism? Because I see you at a lot of the vegan meetups, and I know you're very interested in it. I know you're very versatile in the food that you consume and just the experiences that you have. So when did you start kind of dabbling into it? I know that you, I think, were raw at one point. So like, what is the history and the timeline? And also, why are you no longer vegan? Why are you a flexitarian?
Yeah, sure. So I went vegan initially back in 2015. And this was before like a lot of the plant-based cheeses and like the Beyond Meats and Impossible Meats. So I went vegan back in 2015. And I did it because I really just kind of wanted to challenge myself. I had a friend who told me that she was going on a cleanse for like 3 days, and a part of her cleanse was to not eat meat. And she said that when she stopped eating meat, she would have withdrawals to where she would have shakes, she would be sweating, like, she would have like nightmares just from her body cleansing itself and ridding itself of the toxins of the meat that she was eating. So I was like, so when I heard that, I was like, oh gosh, I had no clue it was something that had that big of an impact on you. So I wanted to just kind of try it out. I wanted to see how long I can go. It was a way to kind of challenge myself. So initially my goal was to start for like a week to see how I felt. And, I noticed, I want to say after a week, I want to say maybe the first 3 days were the hardest. But after like a week, I started to notice like changes in my energy, changes in my skin, changes in my teeth. At the time, I actually was supposed to be getting a root canal, which they wanted me to pay $738, and I was not going to do that. So I started like, okay, how do I avoid this $800 bill, right? Or nearly $800 bill. And so at the time when I was transitioning into going vegan, and not eating meat, I started to notice that my cravings for sugar also had, subsided, and it wasn't as significant as it was before. Then I started looking into herbal remedies, and so I couldn't feel the pain from the root canal that I had needed, and like, how do I heal this naturally? I got really into herbalism, teas. I started studying books on herbs. I started making my own toothpaste from scratch, like making my own, like everything. So I just kind of shifted like my perspective on everything. And again, it was just to kind of see what the outcome would be. I hadn't realized it. I looked up, 6 months had passed. I had started to lose weight. Some of the herbal things that I was doing, because I stopped eating sugar, I didn't have cravings for sugar, because I didn't crave meat, I didn't crave food. I was able to actually heal my root canal. When I went back to the dentist, they were like, what did you do? And whatever you did, don't tell anyone else.
Yeah, because we want that $725.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, and I haven't had any issues since I have not needed one, right? But the challenge is again, this was 2015. So veganism and plant-based eating and eating whole foods and veggies and trying to find places that had fulfilling meals and meal options was very challenging, and I was traveling a lot. So because of that, I was going to different places. They didn't really have options of things for me to eat. I didn't know what to eat, So I switched then to pescatarian. And then at the time, I didn't realize kind of some additional changes. So I would say maybe on a micro level, I was having difficulties. I later learned to my organs because of the lack of nutrients and vitamins that are in some meats. And I would say for myself personally, I had like challenges with PCOS and endometriosis just like throughout my entire life. So there were some nutrients that, based on what I learned later after doing like blood panels, blood work, metabolic things or whatever, that I needed to get from meat. So for the time span that I wasn't eating meat, I was causing degradation to other parts of my body that needed that nutrient source. And so it was recommended that I go back on that. And if I do decide to do it, then do it like, okay, maybe, you have meat twice a week, right? Yeah. Or maybe on the weekends.
So it's interesting that you like solve one issue, but then you start creating other issues. So you started out with fish and then, or pescatarian, then kind of it expanded to like beef and other kinds of meats and stuff.
Well, I would say predominantly, I don't really eat red meat because of just the fat content. And then usually for women who have PCOS or endometriosis, it's not recommended. It's recommended to eat mostly lean meat, so like poultry and fish. So from traveling, I did kind of shift to maybe more of a pescatarian diet. It was really hard transitioning back. Like I would get sick because I think I had made a tuna steak. And I cooked it myself, and like I made sure it was well done, and I ate it, and I just felt horrible. And I'm just like, well, I would assume it maybe like I didn't eat like a juicy steak, like a big steak. It was just a piece of fish, but I noticed that my body wasn't responding the same way as it had before. I was raw vegan for a while as well. That was also a very, very incredible experience.
How long?
I only lasted a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, I lasted a few weeks. Again, because I think I was traveling during that time as well. But like I could literally eat a salad in the morning, with maybe like fruits, veggies, some of the greens, bell peppers. I learned that you can actually eat avocado seeds. So I figured out
the pit.
Yeah, the pit. So,
I heard that too.
Yeah, so I would like saute those up really nice. Well, I would soften them, so I would like kind of make sure they were soft, and then maybe eat that. But when I was raw, because like you can't like cook anything, the pits were a part of like when I would make my vegan foods. But when I was raw vegan, I could eat one time and be satiated for the entire day, and then I could the smell of other foods like made my stomach turn. Like I went out with some friends and I tried to have like a lemonade at like a Dave & Buster's, and it made me sick. It was like disgusting, So I noticed just like a complete change in my palate, like just the types of food that I craved, in my mood, in like my sleep, everything when I was raw vegan. In my skin was like flawless. Like Beyonce who, I woke up like this, so right. I didn't realize the things that were happening on the other end, which is why ultimately I kind of went back to eating meat.
So that was during the same period of when you went vegan. I still eat a little bit of the pit today. Like I'll just take the outermost layer of the pit of the avocado and I'll still eat it. Yeah. And I've seen many arguments both for and against it, but there is a substantial amount of evidence that you can definitely consume it because it's an antioxidant provider, because you put it on the avocado and it stays, it doesn't get brown. You were talking about the lemonade. I can't even have ice cream a lot of times now. As the years go on, it gets more and more, I get more and more sensitive to sweets. There's a lot of things, like if I get a conventional brand, like jelly, for example. I was just at my sister's for the holiday and that's all they have. Like I'm a bougie. I get the fancy kind of jam that has no preservative, like no extra stuff. No high fructose. Exactly. And I'm looking, extra pectin. I'm looking at the ingredients on the one they have, and high fructose corn syrup is like the third one down, and the ingredients are in order of highest to lowest content. So immediately I started to feel like, ooh, something just doesn't taste right. Like I can taste the sugar. I'm very sensitive to it. I don't really drink soda. I haven't had soda since 2011. So it's like anytime you give me a soda, it tastes super sweet to me. Yeah. Even if it's low sugar, like if you give me low sugar chocolate or candy, it tastes super sweet. And people are like, what's wrong with you? And it's transforming more and more into the fact that I just like gravitate towards like fruit and vegetables, and I don't even need to dip them in anything now. I used to need like a ranch or something. Now I don't. It's just like, your palate. Your palate is a powerful thing. It just kind of transforms. Give it a couple of weeks and all of a sudden. So agreed. Yeah, I totally can. I relate to that experience you had with the lemonade. Even now it's just like, no, you keep it. You keep it. You keep it. Yeah. It's hard to turn things down too. Did you find that happening to you? Like when you were vegan or even raw, like people would offer things and you'd have to say no, and you ever feel like, oh, I don't want to be rude, but.
That's a good question too, because I would say people who don't or aren't vegan or aren't doing any plant-based living, they don't understand it. Right? I had someone ask me, well, what do you eat then? As if to say that there are no other foods that exist aside from meat. It's like, well, I can't cook you anything because I don't know what you eat. I'm like, I eat food. Like, go find food that's not meat and cook it.
Potatoes.
Potatoes, beans, lentils, rice, like pasta sauce, tomatoes, go find that and cook it, So I would say that initially people were a little... Because my family, they're from southern Louisiana. So, growing up, they put my mom used to cook with, what is it called? I want to say it's Crisco, which is like a form of lard, which is pig fat. So she would like fry, cook all the foods in that, and then my aunt, when they cook like collard greens, you got like ham hocks, which is like pig, and like, pig feet and all the things in it, you know what I mean? So like I grew up in, this household where that's traditionally, eating animals was a norm, right? So now in shifting that, I would say they didn't realize how many things have animal products or animal ingredients in them, and people were a little resistant to that, and it's just like they would get kind of upset, and it was almost kind of like, who do you think you are? Do you think you're better than me?
Oh yeah.
It's like I would say like, oh, I wouldn't use that type of oil because this oil has this in it from this brand. You should probably use this oil. Well, my friend is a PhD naturopath, and I'm like, well, maybe we should call her and ask her what she thinks. You know what I mean? So people used to get like offended. It's like, do you think you're better than me because you're making different choices, or other choices? Or I think the interpretation was, what you're trying to say is the choices I make are bad.
Right, which you're not at all.
Yeah,
It's a
you know.
deflection, like insecurities, like,
Yeah.
oh, I wish I could be like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I would say people did kind of get offended initially, but then when they saw I was serious and then they saw me losing weight and then they saw like, you know, my skin and they saw like kind of some of the changes, they started to embrace it a little bit more. And they're wanting to be more inclusive, you know, and kind of understanding what it is.
yeah, I find that a lot. Like I don't like to have to explain or like give all the reasons why. So I found that the best way to kind of explain is to be an example of it and just show people, like they'll start to notice. My family too had started to notice that I can still do Spartan races and I can still be healthy and I'm still vegan and I'm making it work for myself, just like you were. Well, it's interesting. It sounds like you got some resistance on that side when you were vegan, and then you stopped being vegan, and then you get some resistance on the other side. Yes. So I just feel, you know, there's so much more nuance in this world than any of society likes to think. I don't feel like we can all live in boxes. You're very versatile, and I said that before. I see you at you're very open. I see you at so many of these vegan events, and you consume so many different vegan foods. And I just personally think it's nice to have people who aren't vegan who are still allies in a sense. Like you still support us and you still take interest in it, and we can still hang out.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to only hang out with vegans. Like, oh, you're not invited to the party.
Yeah.
Like we still go to so many different vegan things. We have a blast. And like veganism is not my identity, and obviously flexitarianism is not yours.
Yeah, right,
like we can still hang out, we can go to a show, or we can sing, and it hasn't even had to be about food.
I agree. I think, you know, it's important to, you know, I would just say personally for myself, like I want to understand other people, right? I love learning about, you know, why people choose to live their life the way that they do, right? I think what makes us unique is our individuality and our choices and the reason why we take the choices and the paths that we take, right? And any opportunity that I have to be able to learn and grow from that, I want to embrace that, right? And it's like, I don't want to criticize you for your choice, but I want to understand your choice. And sometimes you can, I would say personally, you know, I've learned a lot from other people just by being in that particular space, right? And being able to apply things that are relevant to me. Like one of the persons that I met from the vegan group was telling me, you know, like, oh, if you're noticing that your vitamin B12 is low when you're detoxing and you're vegan for this week, try this, right? Or try this particular option because this is rich in this, right? Or try pumpkin seeds because it works as a I think it helps like with parasitics in the digestive system or something to that effect. Don't quote me on that. Google it. Maybe it might, you know, so, you know, but I've learned so many different things about ways to still improve my life. But I think it comes down to just having a respect of each other's differences, Absolutely. Right? And I think that just echoes throughout, right? In any particular juncture, just being able to respect one another's differences and seeking to learn for the purpose of being able to better understand and not to criticize.
Because that's how we build a community.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think you're still doing good in the world for the vegan movement because you will go and you will put your dollars towards the vegan movement when you go and you get vegan food. And so why would we shut you out and say like, oh no, you're not fully vegan, only we can use our dollars for that? That doesn't make any sense. To understand and to learn about other people builds a community. You don't necessarily need to all be the same, but that's how we become stronger. I think that's how we can be more successful. I also wanted to ask, because what's the word I'm looking for? You are just so...
Wonderful.
I mean, facts, wonderful. Experience, bold. When you travel and even when you go to restaurants locally, like you're able to get like a free meal. Or you're able to get free ticket. Like, she's always getting like a free ticket. So could you share, did you learn this skill, or is this just something natural? You're just able to get some good deals. You're able to advocate for yourself. A lot of people are nervous. They'll go to a restaurant and they get the wrong meal or something's wrong with it, and they just don't want to say anything.
Yeah.
But you're just so classy in your approach. You just say it in a classy way. But you're able to, look, I'm a consumer and I came here for a service or a product and I didn't get what I ordered, and I think as a result I should get either whether it's compensated or whether it's like a free meal or so. With regards to restaurants, you do that quite a lot, and even with trips, like you're always like getting the next level up. So how share some tips, like how can people be more bold and classy at the same time?
That's a great question. I mean, I remember like me saying something and advocating for myself, and got first class flights on a trip back from Cuba, So they put me in first class because I said something. Good. So I would say, like, in a sense, it's a positive reinforcer to see that sometimes being able to advocate for yourself in some instances work. And I think Maya Angelou said this quote where people may not remember what you said or what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. So it's like in again, having the character trait of seeking to understand or seeking to learn to understand. I approach people in the same way, right? And when I got back from Cuba after being on the first class flight, I went to San Francisco, the Bay Area, and the concierge, I just walked up to her and I was just asked her, how are you doing today? How's your day going? Are you having a good day? What's going on? And we got to chatting up, and they upgraded my room. And had someone send me house shoes and like a nice fancy robe. And then I was overlooking the bay. So I went from having maybe like a 200 square foot room to maybe like 500 to 600 square feet, all from just, again, having the character trait of wanting to learn to understand, right? And having a genuine interest in the well-being or the interest of someone else. So I'd say that has worked to some extent in certain circumstances, but also they often say closed mouths don't get fed. And I think the worst that someone can say to me is no. Right? So what do I have to lose? Nothing, right? Yeah. And a lot of people don't like rejection. Yeah. And if you become comfortable with rejection, you'll learn how to accept no, but then you'll get more yeses than you realize. So there's this concept that actually came across not too long ago. It's like a form of immersion therapy for people who have challenges with rejection or being assertive or advocating for themselves. It's where they ask for the most obscene things for the purpose of the person telling them no. But it helps them feel more comfortable with hearing no.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it helps them feel more comfortable with also being able to advocate for themselves, right? Like, so for instance, if I say, hey, Mike, can I take Mona home with me today?
Yeah. Go ahead. Just bring her back tomorrow. Right. See, it doesn't work. Because I know she likes you. Now, if you were some random person outside, I would say, no.
Right. No right. No chance.
Or if you ask, like, could I put Ramona in the other room? No, you're a passerby.
Right, this is her house. Right, exactly. Right, but it would help me to be able to feel more comfortable with hearing no. And people don't like rejection. Yeah, they don't. And the thought of it, being rejected brings more fear before even actually being rejected. Sorry, I don't know, my voice keeps going in and out today, but the thought of being rejected, the fear of being rejected keeps people from not even trying. Yeah. Right. So in my challenge for people is, especially if you're paying for a service and you don't feel that you got what you paid for. Yeah. And if the expectations are not to within reason, right? You're not going to walk into like a 5-star restaurant and, they're not going to be like bowing down and kissing your feet or anything. You're like, well, I paid for 5 stars. I need my money back. Right. But within reason, but if I paid for a meal and my meal takes 2 hours to prepare, and then you bring it to me cold, and then you don't say anything till, you don't communicate.
Yeah.
That's poor customer service. That's poor professionalism, right? That's poor service, right? So the service should be reflected in what I'm paying. So my again, to your question, just to encourage people to be more bold is, understanding that rejection isn't personal.
Yeah.
Right. And having the fear of it will keep you more from the things that you want than just going for it.
Yeah.
And being comfortable with a no.
What a beautiful tip. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, don't be so uptight about rejection. Also take an interest in the other person. And I love the tip about practice getting rejected more when you know you're going to get rejected, just to, be more comfortable with it. Those are such cool tips. I guess the mean mug doesn't always work. Right. I'm always like, the look that I give people sometimes, because I've said it before, I'm from the Northeast. Yeah. So if I'm wanting to fight today, like if I woke up today and I did choose violence and I didn't choose I'll just ignore it. Yeah. The look, the mean mug. Yeah, sometimes it'll make people afraid, but it's not going to necessarily get me what I want. Yeah. In the end. So. Yeah.
I mean, depending on the circumstances, because I think people also are surprised when you complain. What do you mean you don't like the service that I gave you? Yeah. Right? So sometimes you get pushback, and that sometimes makes people uncomfortable. Conflict, right? Confrontation, right? So it's just most people are avoidant. And I would say too, I feel like it's regionally, because I'm from Chicago, so we don't really have qualms about conflict. Not too much, you know what I'm saying? So if you get, but if you think about it, if you ever travel to Chicago and you go into the places of business and you go into certain restaurants, the quality of foods and the quality of service that you get is reflective, because they know these genre of people are going to say something if they don't like this service, right? And then it will, put you out of business too, right? So to some degree, it can be helpful to other parties who may not be aware that what they're doing, what they're offering, or what they're providing is not up to par or up to a specific standard, and that they can improve, right? Any growth happens in uncomfortable conversation. Absolutely. Right. So it's just in order to be able to kind of circumvent those particular scenarios or instances, sometimes it requires just saying something, right?
So what I'm hearing is, if you live in Texas, you need to rise up. We need to get together and complain so that we complain more. Together. No shade to any in particular restaurant, but a lot of times too, I think vegans are we're so grateful to have a vegan restaurant that we don't advocate. Because I don't want them to close down. And then look how many have closed down.
Yeah, that's true.
Veganism is about death. It is a death cult. I've heard this, yeah. And I'm just saying that, having been a devout raw vegan, it's a deep hatred of the life and death cycle. You're trying to stop it, but if you just do basic math on the number of deaths that gave your Impossible Burger, it is much higher than a cow. So you have to willfully ignore that. Yeah. And this idea, I'm not going to eat things with faces. Why are worms and bugs not sacred? They are, and they're getting killed by industrial agriculture. Things like glyphosate that causes earthworms to have seizures at 300 times below the level that's allowed in the soil. So if you really respect the cycle of life, you really protect the cows.
And then Instagram was lit on fire. 80%, somebody said 80% of the soy is used to feed livestock anyways. So if you care about these insects, you wouldn't eat the livestock. I said this on a prior episode because there was this meat eaters versus vegan discussion that I reacted to. And the people on the meat eater side were saying, okay, well, you guys call yourself animal lovers, but what about these insects? And you know what? It made me think. I don't necessarily advocate for insects. I won't kill a bug that's flying around. If possible, I'll just send them outside. I don't like to kill bugs intentionally. I might even go like this so that I don't step on ants. I'll dodge ants on the floor. Not ants necessarily, but just bugs. I'll dodge a bug if it's in front of me. I'll go around it. But I can't save all the animals. And I am vegan because I love the animals. That's my primary reason. But I cannot save them all, and I can't advocate for them all. So I don't advocate for bugs necessarily. I also try to fight off gnats. Like I get gnats like crazy. Like you're not just gonna let them stay in your home. This is technically their land that we built on top of. Am I contributing to the life and death cycle? I guess maybe. Like I'm interfering with it in the sense that because I'm killing insects. When it comes to like which animals I find more valuable, yeah, I do value the cow.
I could see from an ecosystem level how what they're saying makes sense, right? Because the insects, they penetrate the soil that helps the grass and the plants that the cows eat for them to flourish, right? So when you remove them from the ecosystem, it disrupts the overall environmental or the entire chain life cycle in terms of the cows being able to be nourished by the plants that are being, drowned in these pesticides that are killing the bugs that the plants need in order for them to be able to nourish the cows, right? So I can see, how they could say the disruption is at the very base level, right? How it can seem like a fallacy, right? So I get it from that particular perspective. But I think the unfortunate thing is to me, it seems like it's more of a reflection of how we've been conditioned to be able to cultivate food for ourselves, right? We don't have the capacity, the space, access to the resources to be able to build an ecosystem where everything can kind of thrive together, right? So I think in terms of it, that particular piece is lost just entirely because of industrialism, because of the digital era, because we work, we have to do this, right? If you think about how taxing and how much time it takes to actually cultivate fruits and vegetables where you're not disturbing in the ecosystems, and even understanding the science behind how to put certain plants with certain foods to pollinate, to produce certain things, especially during certain times of year, depending on climate. So there's so many different components that are part of the conversation that are being left out, right? So it's just like, again, I think it kind of comes back to what I mentioned earlier, where there's this intentionality to try to vilify or criminalize people for their choices or for their belief system, right? And instead of saying like, okay, well, how can we create or cultivate or facilitate opportunities that ensures that we're in a position to be able to have all of our values be heard and be participated in, right? How can we, create communities to where we can have these ecosystems to where we don't need to use pesticides? Because there are plants that work as natural pesticides, but it doesn't disrupt the ecosystem, right? The natural ecosystem to where cows and other animals can freely kind of receive the nourishment that they need in order to thrive, right? So I think that, in my opinion, I thought it was a very interesting article as well, which is why I sent it to you. I knew you'd love it. But I think that that's a really key part that's left out of the conversation. Like the lifestyle that we live, the environment that we live in, consumerism, capitalism, all of these other things disrupt the ecosystem, thereby disrupting our food ecosystem, which is kind of leading to this conversation that we're having now. Right? Absolutely. So yeah, that's just my thought on that.
Yeah, no, I hear that. It's definitely difficult to. I wish we could live more naturally. Yeah. But here I am in my high rise in the middle of Dallas, Texas, right in the heart of the city. I wish I could. I mean, it comes with pros and cons. We always want what we can't have. We always want, we always want everything to be 100% perfect. I wish I could grow my own food, and I wish I didn't have to disrupt the natural process, right? We don't have any time. I don't have any time. Like I'm working every day.
I would say it's getting worse, in my opinion, especially with the rise of inflation and just the increased costs of everything, the lack of community, the lack of social connections that people are able to have, like in times where they could, create their own natural ecosystems, right? Because then that encouraged and that elicited support from your community, right? Because now everybody eats from this, right? So I mean, there's a lot of things that I feel like are lost, and I think the message in the article, even the people who reacted and responded to it, again, I feel like it creates this narrative that pits people against each other. Absolutely. Like you said earlier, if we're able to kind of come together, you know, we're able to get a lot more accomplished and a lot more done.
We can do this, guys. We can do this. Let's come together. I mean, I understand like the wording is very harsh and rash. Veganism is a death cult. Like, okay. I mean, I'm not somebody who gets easily triggered by things. I've been through a lot worse things. A lot worse things have been said to me during my upbringing. I'm not going to get pressed about a comment, but I mean, I can understand why people will read it and get like all worked up about it and some of the responses. But I do feel like we need to be able to just kind of like hear, like listen to what's being said and why it's being said. To your point earlier about like when you confront somebody, you're trying to take an interest in the why. We just need to understand why something is being said. Maybe a lot of it is clickbait. Maybe people are saying certain words to try to garner some kind of response. But if we can just like, you know, chill out a little bit, listen to the message, listen to the why, and then we can, you know, still believe what we believe. I'm not going to start eating meat because of the worms. Because of the worms. The other question I had, and you can feel free to say no, and this is me working on my rejection handling. Would you be willing to do a little performance? Like,
there was a voice in my head that said he's gonna ask you to sing. I can. My voice is kind of like weird today. I don't know if. Do you have like a preference for?
You know, I do like the Jasmine Sullivan song.
Is it the one your friend was singing too? Oh yeah, that was Jasmine Sullivan. Yeah. Oh, would you like me to sing that? Okay. You're like, go ahead, go on.
We're waiting.
Okay.
We've had singing segments on the podcast before.
Okay.
All right.
I'm actually stalling. That's what it is.
Hey, it's all good.
Okay. So this song by Jasmine Sullivan is called Masterpiece. My eyes ain't used to these rays. I'm feeling exposed, but I can't hide no more. I can't hide. As the sun shines on all of my glory, my flaws don't look so bad at all. What was I so afraid of? Every part of me is a vision of a portrait of Mona Lisa. Yes, every part of me is beautiful, and I finally see I'm a work of art, a masterpiece. Oh, oh, oh. And now I see the pretty colors on the canvas. I'm a work of art, a Mona Lisa. I'll share my pictures with the world. I'm not afraid to let it show anymore. Every part of me is a vision of a portrait of Mona Lisa. Yes, every part of me is beautiful, and I finally see I'm a work of art. I'm a masterpiece.
Beautiful, Kay.
That was dedicated to Mona.
Come on, Ramona, come in the frame.
She's like, I'm busy.
She's taking a bath right now. That was so beautiful. Okay, thank you so much for singing for us. So everybody, please look out for Kay. She's going to be singing more in 2025. I'm told, I understand.
Yes.
So
it's been requested a lot by someone.
A lot.
Damas y caballeros, Joykin el Duro.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much.
Oh my, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. We really do appreciate it, and I love just having conversations with you. I always feel like I'm learning something or
likewise
validating. Oh,
likewise.
Appreciate it.
Always. This is my fave.
Oh. So yes, folks, please feel free to weigh in the comments if you have any strong opinions or anything to add about what we were talking about today. And you know, like I said, let's all have some conversations with each other. Let's form community. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your brothers, sisters, dogs, cats.
Tell your pets, yes.
Tell your pets. Put those notifications on, please, so you can see when we have a new video. And please check out Kay. All of the links will be in the show notes so you can follow her. And we will see you on the next one. Can you tell our viewers what you did for New Year's Eve?
So for New Year's, I wanted to go read to puppies because, you know, puppies and dogs and pets, they're really afraid of the fireworks. So to better prepare for that, I actually rented a hotel. So I planned like an entire my entire New Year's around being able to go to the Animal Society, I think it's the Dallas Animal Society, to be able to go read to puppies and like play with them and keep them company so they aren't scared of the fireworks. And they were just so amazing and so sweet, and they were so happy to see us and see everyone. And then I went back to my Superior Suite hotel at the Le Meridian and
Mic drop.
and slept in my king size bed. You know, ran a nice bath with peppermint essential oils. You know, and it was a throw, as the kids say. You know,
That's beautiful. Isn't that beautiful, Ramona?
She's like, yeah.
Isn't that beautiful, Markel?
Wonderful.
Oh, you can't even see you in the shot. It's beautiful, guys. It's beautiful.